Military sexual trauma is an experience, not a diagnosis or a condition, and people react in a variety of ways that has a direct impact on the relationships we have with friends, extended family, intimate partners, and children. MST does not discriminate. People of all genders, ages, sexual orientations, racial and ethnic backgrounds, and branches of service have experienced this trauma. I'm Ashley Rabolja, and I'm a survivor of military sexual trauma. Because this is such a deeply personal issue to me, I've returned to host this special American Legion Tango Alpha Lima podcast series. As the American Legion shines a light on veteran suicide, we would be remiss if we did not discuss military sexual trauma, which we know is a pervasive problem with lasting effects on the mental health of survivors' family and community. In this series, be aware, we will be discussing topics that are sensitive and potentially triggering. So take a pause and take a break as needed. Join me as we explore the ramifications of MST, share the stories of resilience, and identify resources and tools for those in need of assistance. Together, we will celebrate triumph and tragedy. All right. Welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast. Today, we are continuing our series as we adjust our focus on men who have endured military sexual trauma and their journey to heal. Our guests today are Army veteran Rashawn Lagarde, an executive trainer, consultant, poet, and sexual assault survivor who shares his experiences through storytelling to raise awareness and empower others. And we also have our Air Force friend, our veteran friend, Ross Whitmore, a clinical social worker who was the first openly gay commander at the Air Force Special Operations Headquarters, where he faced many personal and professional challenges living under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. So I just want to take a moment and say welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
Excellent.
Same here. Thank you.
Excellent. So, as we know, this topic is a bit heavy. So for folks out there who are listening, we're going to talk about some heavier things today. And I'm looking forward to hearing both of your stories, and let's go ahead and dive right in. So Ross, I'm going to pull the mic over to you. I'd love to hear about your brief journey, if you will, in the Air Force. And tell us a little bit about what it was like to serve under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Okay. I was actually married and had 2 kids and came out later in life. My wife passed away 15 years ago, so I was a single dad. And living under Don't Ask, Don't Tell was incredibly difficult. You really had to watch your back and be careful who you let into that inner circle, particularly for me, when I was looking at raising 2 daughters, it was my income, it was my health insurance, it was everything. Thinking about putting my daughters through college, and just the smallest little slip of the tongue could end all of that. And it was as easy as when I would go on temporary duty, I would come back to the office and people would ask me what clubs I went to or who I hung out with. And I always had to lie about what I did or who I saw, because otherwise I would compromise myself under that policy. So it was very, very stressful. And, honor and dignity and honesty are all things that are valued in the military. And so to have to fundamentally lie about who you are was really uncomfortable and affected me, because I couldn't be honest with the people around me about who I really was.
Mm-hmm. That is enduring and challenging, right?
Yeah.
Not being able to just express who you are at the end of the day out of fear of just folks just coming at you from all angles. You're right. Like it's incredibly challenging in any situation, right? But especially, having a family. I'm sorry to hear about your wife.
Thank you.
That's a lot of life events, right? That are
Yeah,
just jam packed into a time frame where you are, you're trying to probably to, of course, just process all of the grief, and then on top of it, having the identity be
right,
challenged every day in every aspect. So it's
right,
incredibly brave, and um, now that takes a lot of mental fortitude, and
right.
um, so I appreciate you sharing,
Thank you.
of course. All right, Rashawn, I would love to hear a little bit about your service background. Um, you know, Cliff Notes. Tell me a little bit about. I know I found out today is that we're all from Ohio. We all have Ohio lineage. I appreciate that. But I want to know a little bit more about your time in service, and just kind of and get us to a point where you want to share, um, like, just how the overall impact, how everything overall impacted you, because we're gonna step into a little bit more details later.
So you want me to start? Okay, so read earlier. You want to go with talking about how after effects how it impacted me or
So
not? It's a
a
tough
little
one.
bit of your military story. So tell me about Rashawn, raising his right hand, joining the military. Kind of give me the timeline
Okay.
of your time in service, and
Yeah.
just a few of the cliff notes of the hiccups that kind of like went through as you
Sure.
were. Mhm.
Yeah, of course. I can definitely do that. Yes, so as I said, it was March 20th, 2012. Rose his right hand to serve this country proudly.
Mhm.
And when I joined because I wanted to further my education. I wanted to be part of a community of brothers and sisters that had one goal was to protect this country, and also wanted to gain a sense of value and worth and better my life because prior to that, me graduating from Central State University, I was all over the place. I wasn't disciplined. I didn't put value on my education. And I wanted to make a change. And I felt, you know what, the military is going to steal that in me because I always wanted to join. And I know that everything that happened prior to me was my own risk I done to myself, self-harm for myself that no one done it to me. So I take personal blame for that. But as I said, I'm gonna use that for energy to motivate myself and to myself, hey, let's get better, let's change. So I decided the military, and I felt that this would be a great opportunity to make that change for myself. So when I joined, I came into an organization um, believing that I'll be groomed to have the compassion and capabilities to protect my battle buddies and this country, but that wasn't the case. Coming in, all I saw was racism, discrimination, um, jokes, microaggressions,
Mm.
biases. You name it, and I didn't. And when your culture, your values that you grew up when you was raised clashes with your organization, not the army. What you got, the army is just a it's the name, it's the foundation. But when you get to the unit, those people that you're with, they set that circle and that spirit of the influencers. So when your values clash with them, it's either you're going to join in or you're going to
Mm.
break. And if you're the outsider, what happens? We all know when you're outsider, when you feel you're the outsider, you're going to get targeted.
Mm.
And when I didn't compel to their belief system and values of the sexual gestures, um, the comments, some of the tasks, um, passive commands of, hey, pull your pants down, we want to see this. And they start realizing I wasn't going to do it. It started making me come off as, oh, he don't want to abide by rules in society. And yeah.
Mhm.
And and then it seemed like, as you said, as a perpetrator, it starts off with a joke, and then it goes farther and farther. until the person actually makes a move. And even that's the case, even when we did training for the Army with SHARP training, sexual assault awareness, it still felt like, did this happen? And you report it, and then when your supervisor, my platoon sergeant, tells you, the person that runs the whole platoon tells you, "Hey, I'm gonna take care of this," and you're groomed to believe they are, and you let it go. You are groomed to believe in your commander, your first sergeant, your platoon sergeant. You are groomed to tell your first line leader, "Hey, when I'm thirsty, when I'm cold, when I need to go to the med station," you are groomed to tell them that. But when the first line leader is not educated on, when they report something to you, they're supposed to tell the next line up, and they're also supposed to tell the sexual assault response coordinator. And that didn't happen. It just went straight to a platoon sergeant up, and nobody took care of it. And then that's when everything started. It wasn't the assault that almost took my life. It was the after.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Leadership's so important. And regardless of service branch, right? Like, we're all kind of brought together under a shared value system, right? Like, there's something that innately draws us to the military. I've always used the example of Harry Potter, like the sorting hat. Like, we're all drawn to different branches for their different like values or attributes or something that just kind of, brings us there. And once we kind of have that established value system, it then becomes an inconsistency with what we value and what we believe. Like, we only believe we're willing to handle it when it's inconvenient for us. So kind of the description of, you're like platoon sergeant, right? Like, you put trust into these folks to your left, right, and center. And when they let you down, like systematically let you down, right? Like, many folks don't understand how either restricted or unrestricted reporting works in the military. I could tell even from my own experience, and I'd love to know both of your experiences with how any experience you had with like trying to report this, right? Because you just find that folks aren't willing to take you seriously, and they kind of look the other way. And it's like, well, at what point does that change? And what was, and I'm curious, Rashawn, just to follow up with you, what was that change moment that happened, right? So like, you were going consistently trying to report this, no one's listening, which is frustrating. It creates a moral injury. What was that kind of point of that happened for you?
I can say I reported it one time, and I trusted my command that they will take care of it. The funny thing is that I kept everything within the chain of command. I started with my first line on up, and it wasn't the fact that that I didn't report. It was the episodes that happened after. It was me getting physically assaulted. I got choked out from behind. I got called into, it's a trigger warning, everybody who been through physical assault. So we called the DFAC area. So I was going to the DFAC where we eat our food and lunch and dinner. And it was going to DFAC area inside where building where the second and third floor is the living quarters, and the first floor is the operations. And that's the building we was at Schofield Barracks. And the one like first floor in the corner somewhere is a DFAC, is the bandit area, and the MPs, the military police, take that area. And I remember getting called in. I just graduated from air assault school, and I got called by an NCO. I'm not gonna say his name on here because he called me in there, and he was an E5. He said, "Hey, Specialist Lagarde, how did air assault school go?" And something in my mind triggered said, "Why would you ask me that?" Because I know it's happened like 2 weeks ago. It's just something that didn't feel right. I just don't know. And next thing you know, I felt arm come around my neck. And mind you, I'm a 6'3", can't tell, African-American male. So I'm a big guy, right? So ain't nobody gonna come in front of me. And I wanted her to fly. And then somebody came behind me, and then next thing I know, I couldn't breathe. I remember tapping, and I walk up against the wall. And everybody was looking like, what just happened? And I went to I got walked to the aid station. They was saying, yeah, he hit his head, he passed out. Everybody kept saying what they saw. He saw me just fall over. And it just didn't seem right. But as I was leaving, I heard a lot of whispers and a lot of eyes looking like they face like something happened. And my battle buddy, I can say he's okay, specialist Barriers, came to my room that night, knocked on my door, and he told me what happened. He says E7 type military police platoon sergeant hit you in the choke. And he told everybody, if any of you tell, I will give all you Article 15s, UCMJ action. And funny, when I went to the MP station after several months after, I reported it. And when I tried to get the FOIA on it, they said it never happened. It was like it never. I honestly went down, me and still went to report it, and the documents were never there. So, yeah. So imagine how just everything just keep turning, and they tried to put me in a. I remember they knew they tried to say I was a suicide risk. They did everything. They told me I couldn't re-enlist because I was a temporary profile, had a really bad plantar fasciitis injury. They did everything they can to make me break and to act out. And all I did was keep annotating. And when they found out I was going to do that, I was getting prepared to get moved to. I was told to an outpatient suicide unit, because they said I was threatening. I was threatening of using brute force with a weapon. And then there's more details of that, but yes, that's what the command team had this paper for me to sign to get me moved immediately out the unit to go to some suicide unit. Yeah.
That's, I think about the level of gaslighting that happens in the military, and then you add the layer of trauma, right? Just it's so unreal that you have to go to such lengths, and I'm sorry, like that's so frustrating. I'm frustrated for you. Like, I'm thinking about it. Ross, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this, because as we dig in more to each other's stories, there's always this line of just moral injury, people just gaslighting us into believing that we're lesser than, because we're trying to do the right thing, right? Like, something I tell people all the time is like, do better. So Ross, I want to toss it over to you. Rashawn's talked a little bit more in depth about his experience, and I would like to, understand a little bit more from your perspective, both on Rashawn's experience and any experiences that are in to relation with your own.
Right.
And of course, whatever you're comfortable sharing,
Okay.
I'll let you take it away.
Great. Well, I think Rashawn had asked me a little bit about how I would have handled it as a commander. And, I was fully prepared going into my command to deal with a sexual assault. I knew that that was a possibility. And I felt fairly comfortable managing that because I'm a career mental health professional. I'd worked with sexual assaults in the past. I knew what the resources were in the Air Force. And so I was fairly confident. But what I wasn't prepared for was that it would happen to me. And I was the first openly gay commander in AFSOC headquarters. I'm a medical guy. I had a boyfriend at the time, and we were at an official function on base, and the senior enlisted advisor for the hospital showed up with his wife, and he was extremely intoxicated and sexually assaulted me and my boyfriend directly in front of his wife and my commander and the entire wing leadership. And they sent him home that night. And my boss looked at me and said, well, I'm not doing anything about this until Monday. And so my experience is very similar to Rashawn in that the assault itself was difficult and hard to wrap my head around, but the aftermath was absolutely brutal. And I went and did a taped interview with the Office of Special Investigation. I did everything that you're supposed to do when you've been a victim of sexual assault. My commander called all the leadership together that Monday morning and said, the chief is still part of our family. We need to protect him. And if anybody talks about this, you will lose your job. She then called a commander's call and told the entire medical clinic that the chief was part of our family, that we needed to support and protect him, that it wasn't a sexual assault. It was not an alcohol-related incident. And I'm sitting on the front row just thinking, like, I'm taking crazy pills. I couldn't believe that this was actually happening. And then it got to the point where I would be in executive meetings, and once they were over, my fellow commanders would say things like, it's so uncomfortable for us to be in those meetings. And I said, why? And they said, because the way she treats you is just so brutal. You know, I'm a seasoned mental health professional and a senior commander, and I've had the briefings and I know what to do. And I was hanging on by a thread. And I always kept thinking, how do we expect our young people who go through this to show up for duty and function normally when the military really is ill prepared to handle sexual assault? It was devastating. It was my life fell apart. My boss torpedoed my career. There was no way for me to make 06. And so I ultimately retired, ended up in an inpatient psych unit for a week. I did a 30-day residential treatment program for PTSD. And I've slowly pieced my life back together. But for a while there, I was not functioning at all. I mean, in my 4 years after retiring, I lost 4 jobs. I either resigned before I got fired or I was fired. My ability to function was completely robbed of me. So it was devastating.
I know that I'm sorry is never enough, especially for all of us sitting here, right? It's a significant thing that alters our relationships, our lives, our sense of self. I really appreciate you sharing, because as there are many people out there who have felt those different feelings at different times with different situations, and it's it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because you trust people to do the right thing.
Right.
And to be told, hey, we're going to protect this other person. It damages like your whole self-concept
It really
of
does.
life, self, career. And you're being told that we need to protect the person who violated me.
Right.
They're a priority, not me. Not the boundaries, the profound violation of boundaries and personal integrity. Like we're gonna skim over that, but we're gonna protect this other person. I don't understand it. And I don't know why the military, in a general sense, feels that like that's the appropriate response, right? And there's different factors, right? Everyone's leadership chain of command is different, but historically across the board, when it comes to, military sexual trauma, how it's handled, how the predator, we don't talk about the predator, we always talk about the victim, right? Like, oh, well, I don't know about y'all, but I had folks in my time and career just tell me to get over it. It already happened. Move on. And it's like, I have to work with this person. I have to be able to trust the people that are in front of me, behind me, and to my left and right. And what you're telling me is now I'm in the center of this compass and I have no clear direction to move because I will be walking on eggshells. And it's heartbreaking, Ross, Rashawn. Like I think even of my own trauma, right? Like it's unreal. I'll never forget the day I sat down in that office and they pretty much told me I was the problem.
Yeah.
Because I was speaking up and outward. That the testimony of 5 men against 1 woman wasn't a red flag for anyone, right? Like, right. And to have to sit there in training meetings and then to not be able to continue on in your career. And Rashawn, I'd love to hear, how your career trajectory was overall impacted. And I know that you've gotten out and whatnot. I know I couldn't make staff sergeants to save my life. They kept putting me in slots, but I couldn't get the position. I couldn't go to the schools, but kept getting more responsibilities. And how much does it take until you break?
Right.
Right. And then there's those repercussions. So Rashawn, I'll ask you just a little bit more about, that experience and I guess subsequently from everything that happened and then moving forward, how do you feel, that impacted both yourself, career, concept of self?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you. And same similar with me. So as the specialist when I was E4 in the Army, and when I reported it, and when I walked to division, I literally walked to division. My car was down at the time, I believe. I remember I walked down there on lunch because I didn't tell nobody what I was doing. I just left. I said, it's 11 o'clock in the Schofield Barracks. If you know Schofield Barracks, it's like a mile and a half. I think it's a mile long walk where I was at. It's by Poly, and we had to walk all the way down to division was like a mile and a half out. And I sat in division. I said, I need to talk to somebody to help me. I have a 8-page paper. Somebody needs to read this. They looked at me like, what's going on here? I was like, they said, did you go brigade? I said, they didn't call me back because I did call brigade like a 24 hours prior to that, and nobody called me because I didn't know how it worked. I just know I just looked online for a number and they said, wait 1 second. Literally in a minute and a half, I get a phone call from brigade. That quick. Oh, hey, Special Guard, we are here. We are here to help you. What's going on? We're so
Right.
And hey,
that just took me to a place. I was like, I know exactly what phone call you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, I got a phone call real quick. And they said, where you at? I said, I'm at division outside and we'll pick you. And I don't know if I walked there, I can't remember. But I got to brigade, I gave them the paper and I waited outside. They said, come on here. And they said, sit down. This is so the victim advocate, and also, and then here's a SARC. I said, who are you? Who? What's the victim advocate? SARC. I'm like, who are you? What do y'all do again? And not realizing when not, and go backwards, and Mr. Rob, I know you can know this, when we do our annual trainings, Ashley too, right? A lot of especially a lot of soldiers, when you want to go home, don't ask questions. And a lot of when the people who do the trainings want to breeze through. So I was always want to ask questions. I put my hand up. I got a question. Lagarde, don't special Lagarde.
Put it down. Put it down. Yep.
I'll get a text message from my first line. Don't say nothing. Shut up when I'm smoking you. Literally. So, and that's in that. I'm not saying this everybody in that culture. Everybody realize when I say, I mean in that. When you're in that culture, I mean in your sphere of people around you that are supporters every day, that's the circle on top of, because another organization is very supportive. Another CG installation commander is probably very supportive. So within this culture, even though CG may be supportive, that unit down here may not be, because they can fly by and get away with rules. So because they got everybody groomed a certain way. So
right.
When they said, you got sexually assaulted, I did. When you said that when he grabbed your nut. And that time we had fully loaded weapons, and we was on amber. We had rounds in the magazine, and we was ready to go to range. I said, oh, and you also got physically assaulted. Yeah, I did. And then I remember talking to the brigade commander. Brigade commander called me in his office, and he asked me, I'll never forget. He said, he was a 05 or 06. I can't remember. 05 or 06. I can't remember, y'all. I know I'm a year out the Army. He said, he's full board. He's full board. And he said, are you lying about this? I'm at position attention. No, sir. And I'm nervous. I'm sweating. He said, why? He said, you have no counselings. No counselings. How does a soldier with no counselings go through all of this? I don't know. I don't know, sir. I don't know. So if you're a bad soldier, I'm going to find out. And once a bad soldier, always a bad. He said, once a bad soldier, always a bad soldier. It's gonna find you. But I'm gonna take your word for it. I'm gonna get this transfer in and get you moved. I got moved a mile down the street. So next, it was immediate transfer with the unit. I gave him the 4187. I transferred for him to another unit, and they was confused. They couldn't do anything about it, and they was livid. I just know I didn't report the next day. I went to the unit. Phone calls was already made. I went to my new platoon. First sergeant pulled me aside and says, oh, I heard about you. Don't start no shit here. Excuse my language. Don't start nothing here. Roger, first sergeant. And then I got put on lots of details. I tried to come back from my injury, but I did what I can, and mental health went bad. I had got a new NCO. He at that time I was having a victim advocate services, and the SHARP program was there for me. They actually helped me out. They got me through, and they offered me a transfer, but I didn't take it because I was about to get out the military. And I can see how it impacted my career going forward was even when I went back to unit to clear, because I was a CBurn and I had ProMass in my name, and the E5, the E7 that physically assaulted me. He wasn't able to talk to me because of the unit. It was a unit investigation. They moved to a Charlie company as a unit investigation. It's like more into the story, but that's another time. And he cussed me out. He saw me with my new NCO, and he told me, you're not giving me a greeting today? I said, I'm not supposed to talk to you. That was a restraining order, sorry. And I kind of kept walking. He let me have it for at least a minute full of just cuss words, and everybody looked. Nobody said nothing. As I was leaving out upset, I hope it's another day we can do a podcast finish story. As my ballad buddy, at the time, his name's Hubbard, E4, and he's one of those very, very respected barracks lawyers. He was a very respected barracks lawyer because he always knew to answer everything. I love them guys. He was there, and it was the whole platoon. He could tell you the story too, because he got a different part of the story than I did. But he was there. The command sergeant major sees me, battalion command sergeant major, and he says to me, "Specialist Lagarde, come here." This is the battalion formation. Battalion formation. It showed now. He called me the P word, the B word, every word you could think of in front of everybody. And he was Audie Murphy too. He's already Audie Murphy, getting ready to retire. He let me have it and told me everything you could think of. He called me a snitch. I tried to protect you. You didn't give me a chance to fix nothing, you coward. And he put his hands at me, started approaching me. I broke parade rest, and I don't know, I lost it. All the platoon sergeants rushed us. They rushed me. They pushed me to the ground, said, "You're finished. You're done. You're finished. Your career is over, you piece of..." Like, it was a movie. Like, this literally happened in the battalion. And what they did was they separated me. I guess they tried to call the brigade. They said, "Command Sergeant Major, you was wrong for that. Everybody saw that. We can't help you." So, for some reason, it was brushed on the rug. I was not allowed to go back there again.
That's wild to me. Like, you're telling me you got rushed like football style between multiple NCOs, reamed out in front of a battalion formation, and people just standing there, right? Like, there's just this culture of complacency.
Yeah, it was all.
Why can't we just stand up for one another, and when we see the thing, intervene, right? Like, isn't that part of some of the sharp messages? Like, see something, say something. Like,
Right.
if somebody needed to stop it, but, and then, just across the board, I'm just going to generalize, I just feel like we don't want to involve ourselves because we're constantly being, told these myths of sexual assault, like what can happen to us, right? But then people see exactly what happens, and then it represses them from wanting to say anything else further or even report, right? And I feel that this just opens Pandora's box of self-blame. Like, you go into these maladaptive thoughts from here on out. Like, am I really the problem? Right? Like, am I the one who's damaged? Did I do this? Like, I'm not a real woman. I'm not a real man because of the following. Or folks just keep telling me that this is just acceptable behavior when your entire core is about to just erupt. Like, you are feeling guilt and shame, and you're just trying to do the right thing. And it's so difficult. And I can't imagine. I can't, like, my experience is different, right? All of our experiences are different,
Right.
but it doesn't, like, for example, the opinions of others or opinions of you, right? Like, that doesn't change the facts of what happened.
Well, think about what's the most powerful training: sitting in an annual SHARP training or watching a fellow soldier get rushed at a battalion formation. What do you think is the most powerful training? It doesn't matter what the SHARP says.
Yeah.
The reality of it is you're going to get called out in front of the battalion, belittled, lied to, and then told that your career is over.
Yeah.
There's no SHARP training in the world that can counter that.
Right. Because at one point it's like, okay, we have just witnessed the outcome of when
That's reality.
That's the reality of the situation. Absolutely. And then, you can't expect other people in, your company, your battalion, the people you work with, now you're not going to expect them to do the right thing, because now they've just seen that what happens if you do the right thing or if you stand your ground.
Exactly.
And they're going to be hesitant to document sexual assault, sexual harassment. And they're going to basically see that, people aren't going to believe me if I say anything
Yeah.
anyway. So why bother?
Not only are they not going to believe you, but they're going to go for your jugular.
Yeah.
It's not passive. There's nothing passive about what happened to Rashawn. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That was very aggressive.
Yeah.
I can say that after it happened, my bell buddy told me, when we still talking on the phone, he always said, I will tell your story if you ever need me, because you get my version, he got his version. His version was they got called in the office with tape recorders in 2013, 13. They had tape recorders. And he said, hey, we want you to say, he told me that he told him, hey, Special, we want you to say that Special the guard rushed the sergeant major. You say this for us. We're going to help you. And he said, no, it didn't happen that way. And it was basically the junior, basically E4 below, versus the NCOs at that time. And he said that there was not ETS of the Army to go ROTC Ohio State. He said that a lot of soldiers were scared to come to my formation, come to my ceremony, because they said, they would say, hey, we want to go to Rashawn's ETS ceremony because he's about to go to Ohio State and go ROTC, become an officer soon. And they said, when they met, they said no. They were scared, perception too wise, going to support me after how bad I made the unit look. And so they were scared on that part. And then when I went to the board to become an NCO, it was 5 of us. Everybody dropped out. Everybody showed up, dropped out. I only went to the board. And they told me I did well. They asked me, do you feel like you deserve to be NCO? And I said, I believe I do. They came back, so I didn't get it because they felt I needed more time to be molded better to become an NCO. And no one showed up, just me. And uniform was right. They told me that I couldn't become an NCO because I need to get more training. And it didn't sit right, like nobody. And that's even at the Soldier Month board. And I went to Soldier Month board, same thing. Just no. I came an officer. It seemed like it followed me. It followed me and got sent back to Schofield Barracks as an officer. After I got done bowling, got sent back to Schofield Barracks. And it just seemed like every leader it started feeling like I was the bad apple, because every leader I came under, I was so passionate about helping soldiers that mission was first. It was mission first, soldiers second. Soldiers always how we preach, mission first. Or it just didn't feel like the soldiers first, and they ones that complete the mission for us. They makes our mission successful in the officer world. And if the soldiers ain't there, the mission don't get done, because officers ain't gonna do it. We gonna create the plan. We ain't gonna we ain't doing it. And then now when I came up first, and I got transferred to Fort Campbell, where I ended. I went inpatient for 30 days, and I was outpatient for like 3 or 4 months. And so much, that's a whole nother story. It's so much happened there. What led me to suicide was my platoon sergeant was fraternizing with soldiers. Sending pictures, soldiers want to step up, same thing. So much is going on. This platoon sergeant this very day, I ain't saying his name, so he's a sharp rep. He's a sexual assault. He went to the schoolhouse, and he been under investigation 2 or 3 times. And it's sad. It's totally sad. And he's still in the Army. And I was trying to figure out ways to help the soldiers come out, but they were scared to say anything. And I remember my NCOs disrespected me, and I said, I'm gonna talk to the first sergeant about it. Say, hey, talk to your soldiers, because, and I'm a new first lieutenant, and I'm trying to figure things out and how to go about it. And I ain't told my commander, so I didn't want to keep bothering him with stuff. I just feel, let me talk to the first sergeant. Let me talk to the first sergeant. We got this. And then lessons learned that the NCOs are gonna stand for the NCOs, and they rushed me. They told me that I was they told me in the meeting that Rashawn, the lieutenant, is you care too much about the soldiers. You don't put the mission. They literally told me, you don't put the mission first. The soldiers are not first, it's the mission.
That
You
never made
care.
sense to me. Never made
Yep.
sense. I've heard
They
similar language in my own career and never understood why. It's people first always, because people get the mission done, just as you said. And to
And
be,
DOD preaches that, but they don't.
they don't have.
When the rubber meets the road, Rashawn, I experienced the exact same thing as a commander. They don't value it. They
and the
really
soldiers don't see that. They think it's us. Why? And you want to, and then even now, unless I'm like, why are we doing this? Don't make sense. And I try to explain it to them, but they still think you're the bad guy because you're making them do it. And it's not you, it's all the way up and it comes down.
right.
Mhm. So I think the question is, and I'd love to ask both of you, is given what we know and what we have experienced and the different levels of chaos and craziness and gaslighting, how do we encourage people to use their voices, speak out, report, and step out of otherwise a very just toxic leadership climate to take care of themselves? Like, is that, I don't think it's a linear path by any means, but how do we encourage a generation and then the future generations of soldiers, airmen, marine, etc., to know what their rights are, understanding their own personal boundaries and how they can move forward and create a safe environment for themselves? Like, how do we do that? Like, what's the message to DoD? What's the message to, the common soldier, airman, marine? What does that look like? What words of wisdom would you bestow upon them?
Well, I think people have to understand that it's a risk, because I think Rashawn's story and my story highlight the risk that you take when you break ranks. So you've got to make sure that you surround yourself with people that are supportive and that you follow the protocol, but you've got to be prepared for the backlash, because there's going to be backlash. But for your own peace of mind and for your own healing, it's imperative that your story is told. And there are organizations out there that can provide support for you, whether it's within DoD or outside of DoD. I happen to work for a nonprofit called Give an Hour that provides free mental health services for active duty and veterans. So that's just one example of organizations that are available to help you through this process. But you're going to need the support of close friends and professionals.
I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
And there's hope. I mean, you look at Rashawn and I, and we've clawed our way back from that abyss, and it wasn't easy. I'd never been fired from a job in my life, and I've been working since I was 12.
Hmm.
I mean, it was completely disorienting to me. I kept thinking, why can't I function? So there is hope. And I think that's the message that I want to share today, is that despite the catastrophe that I experienced, there's hope.
I think hope is a beautiful message. In this series, one of our goals is to shine a light on just the inconsistencies, right, with what we value and what we believe, but also remind people that there are ways to overcome, the triumph and tragedy.
Right.
Yeah.
DoD is a big monster, and you're a little cog in that huge organization. But that doesn't diminish your value when something like this happens.
Absolutely. I know how important it is to heal
Yeah.
And healing is a long journey, and trauma just doesn't affect you. It affects your family, affects your friends. We've talked a little bit about the workplace and just trying to overcome and figure out how to operate in this new space and create a new space. Give yourself enough grace and kindness after all of the negativity that has surrounded, between emotional safety, intimacy, social isolation. There's so many ways that sexual assault, sexual harassment can impact someone. And I'd love to dive a little bit more into the healing journey with both of you. I think it's important for people to hear both the hard stuff, but also the good stuff. So
Yeah.
let's turn that page just a little bit, and let's talk a little bit more about what the healing journey looked like. I'll let either of you could do the toss up. I'll flip the coin.
I can start that off. For me, the healing journey was starting in 2019 when I saw a short poem by the name of retired CW3 Edward Wilson. He goes by Obie West. And he did the poem was him portraying the perpetrator.
Mm.
And once I saw that, it was the video was amazing. You have to watch it. It's it's still one of the top videos. It's the Army Sharp poem. It's on YouTube. Has a lot of views, and now Obie is he's very, very known in the community of advocacy. And he's one of my mentors as well now. And when I saw that poem, I said, the Army does things like this. We're allowed to do videos like this. The Army to do this. And once I saw that, I started writing. I used to write when I was in high school, and next thing you know, made a video with she's second lieutenant now, second lieutenant Vanessa Ashley. She did Edward Wilson's video as well. And I met her, small world, I met her in Schofield Barracks at the assistant MRT instructor course. Like to be assistant instructors like a week long that I was able to do for that social worker felt that it'd be good enough for me to do that could help me change and look at the perspective. And he was one of the reasons why I became a social worker, not knowing like, wow, the social worker helped me. And I thought like, he did help me. I appreciate that. And I look back at that, and that video went around and it got me to Arlington, doing a poem for the Sergeant Major of the Army and the Chief of Staff, and got me going different military bases and talking to soldiers, and that's where it started. It started literally in 2019 when I saw that at BOLC in the middle of sharp training, and it started there. And one of my quotes on my website is, I used to write to protect myself. Now I write to protect others, and that's where it started. And here I am now, trying to finish my book, trying to finish this, getting my master's in social work so I could be licensed one day, like my fellow comrade over here. And and right now, I said I have a Journeys also have me a website now too, and I go to different organizations, and I collaborate, helping it like from corporate America, nonprofit, DoD, and I do self-care, consulting and risk mitigation and preventive measures. I do resiliency and self-reflection training, sexual harassment, sexual assault, equal opportunity and ethics, organizational culture and trauma-informed care awareness. Talk about transformational leadership and diversity and inclusion. So I talk about a number of things for workshops that I provide to all the organizations now, just because of what happened to me. So instead of me, kind of thinking like there's no hope, that I felt there's no hope, I said, I'm gonna turn that and use that to drive to create change. And that's what my organization, that's what my business is about. So yes, that's what I do now. That's my healing, what I do.
Multifaceted, I will say that.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that very much. It's very powerful. And I just have a quick follow-up for you because our deputy director actually sent me your poem, and I did have an opportunity to enjoy that. And I'm not gonna lie, I got teary-eyed.
Hmm.
I sat with it. I think words are very, very powerful, and I appreciated your poem. And I wanted to ask you if there was a favorite verse of the poem, and we'll be sure to include everything in show notes. But I would love to know what like stanza or verses are the most impactful or most powerful to you, that like when you wrote them down, you were like, that's it. Like, and I know that you've got like it's like 8 minutes long, folks, and it's really good.
Nice. It's
It's good.
so fun. Yes, that's my first spoken word
Mm,
and my or you could call my first spoken word and my first one and the most like one. And yes, the longest one. I have seven now, all in my head. So and I perform them now, and I actually have a workshop called the Power of Spoken Words now, where I go to the organization and I'll do it. So I'll do a poem and we'll have a discussion. I'll do another poem discussion, another one discussion, because they all are mental health based or trauma informed based. So we are actually having a dialogue to where you can ask the question like, when you hear that, what have you have done? And it's very informative because it hits different pockets and different topics. It's really cool. But to answer your question, man, what line wasn't there so long too? I like the whole entire one, but I can say it wasn't the poem. I think it was the resolution part, the ending.
mm,
And I think it was more towards the end when I went into, I guess, so instead of me saying a line, it was more when I went into, when I got off when I told my story and I got into talking about others. I mentioned women leadership, and I mentioned what 5 letters make people so uncomfortable. LGBTQ plus. Why we just can't understand and respect the pronouns of he, she, her, his, or they. Look,
mm,
and I felt me saying, you know what? I said what I said. Let me talk about others because it's not just about me. Because
mm,
it's not, and it's just certain organizations and cultures don't respect or they not knowledge or educated. But once you're educated, now you're held accountable. Because if you're not educated, I get it. It's okay. Like you didn't know. But now I felt I wanted to advocate for others. And I felt that was very important. And I went to the end resolution or if you watch the video, you'll see other soldiers. What make that video different is that I utilize different cultures and nationalities of people, and you just don't see people like you. You see people that are your skin color, that looks like you, that represent you. And I felt that was very important. And instead of in the video telling my story about the end, I always have a resolution. This is what we ask for. Can you listen to me? Can you protect me? Please believe mental health issues are real. It's an eternal fight. And who will step up and do what's right? And I felt just that whole scheme from when I started advocating for others was very vital, very vital.
mm.
Yeah.
It's very impactful. I've picked up a bit of poetry myself, and it's cathartic. It's cathartic to write and just take out paper and pen, whatever makes you happy. And it's an incredible healing journey nonetheless. So I'm going to toss it over to Ross because I want to hear a little bit more about Ross, your healing journey.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, I found that, once I was in a healthy place and I had a circle of friends that loved and supported me unconditionally, and my family
mm,
and professionals, that I take every opportunity to tell my story so that others know that there is hope, that you can survive that and still flourish in life, even though your career may end and horrible things may happen. There is light on the other side of that. And similar to Rashawn, connecting with other people, telling that story, advocating, sharing resources, all of that gives meaning to what I experienced, and it doesn't own me anymore.
Mm.
And I think that that's really important,
Powerful.
that I've found a way to channel that passion and the knowledge that I gained from that experience, and to share it with other people.
Mm.
I'm not a poet,
Okay.
but I'm used to public speaking. I had to do lots and lots of briefings when I was on active duty. And so I'm very comfortable in front of a large audience. And that's my passion now, is to be able to share that story.
And both of you have such incredible stories. It really embodies the, triumph and tragedy. And here at the American Legion, we want folks to understand that this is pervasive and we need solutions, but we also need to heal. We need to heal together. We need to have some sort of consensus as to ways to move forward together, and every path's going to look a little different. So we will have links to resources for our listeners in our show notes, but if there's something or someplace where you want to send our listeners to learn more, feel free to share your information before we wrap things up. So if you have a website, I know, Rashawn, you talked just a little bit about your business and consulting, and Ross, especially with you being a social worker and everything that you're doing clinically. If there's any other additional resources or shout outs, or just tell us where we can find you, and if that's what you'd like, right?
Right. I just want to give a plug to Give an Hour. I'm on the board of directors there, and they do a lot of great work. And it's free mental health services for active duty and for veterans. And the thing that's great is it's for their loved ones. Most of the time you have to be family member, but with Give an Hour, you don't have to be a family member. You can be a loved one and still be eligible for services.
I believe we did an episode with Trina. Is it Trina?
Yeah, Trina's a very, very, very close friend of mine. I've known her for a long time.
Oh, yay. I always love hearing that. It's such a small world sometimes.
It is, yes.
Makes me happy. Yay. All right, Rashawn, your turn. What kind of plug, shout out?
Yes, so I want to some resources that I do have for people is Dr. Vanessa Gotton. She has a nonprofit called Hush No More, where she do a lot of holistic approaches, and she is able to provide services to victims of crimes and in a more holistic approach, and be a source for you if you need services or want somebody to talk to. And then Dr. Deandra Poe, she has a nonprofit called Glass Soldier, and she could also be able to provide resources as well for you if anyone needs that. And also want to give a huge shout out to DM 10 Strong Difference Makers. That's the organization that I'm so thankful to be a part of, that helped me change and move forward and get to where I'm at right now. Great group of mentors. I'm so happy to be a part of that organization. It was one of the best things that happened to me. And from my website, you can find it at rlspeaks.com. My LinkedIn is Rashawn Lagarde. My YouTube channel is Rashawn Lagarde Speaks. My business Instagram is RL_speaks. And email me info@rlagardespeaks.com. So yes.
That's awesome.
Rashawn Speaks, everybody, ladies and gentlemen.
Talk a lot. I'm so bad.
I appreciate all the consistency in the text, though. That's branding. That's branding,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
Oh, it wasn't easy. It's a lot of headaches when you got schoolwork. You think about a visit. Oh my goodness. Don't do it when you got school. When you're a full-time student. Don't do it.
Been there, done that. So, ugh. All right. Well, I just want to say big thank you from the American Legion family. We appreciate you. We hear you. We see you. We respect you. We believe you. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your stories and triumph over tragedy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Alphas, you can find the rest of this special series in all 4 seasons of the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you are consuming your podcasts. Subscribe on your favorite platform so you don't miss a single episode. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter and send us feedback at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. And thank you for joining us today on our special episode. Thanks for listening to the Tango Alpha Lima special series. We understand that this content can be triggering. Please know that you are not alone, and if you are in crisis or in need of support, you don't have to be enrolled in VA to connect to the Veterans Crisis Line. Dial 988, then press 1 for 24/7 confidential crisis support.